Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into a really cool economic idea today. What if the most important thing about a company isn't how big it is, but how connected it is? It's a concept that helps us understand one of the most bizarre business decisions in recent memory.
So let's start with a puzzle. Picture this. It's the 2008 financial crisis. You're a CEO, and you go to the government asking for a massive bailout. But not for your company, for your biggest competitors. I mean, why on earth would you do that? It goes against everything we think we know about business, right?
All right, let's set the scene. It's the fall of 2008, and the U.S. auto industry is just on the brink of disaster. The credit markets? Totally frozen. Car sales? They've fallen off a cliff. And two of the big three are staring into the abyss.
And right in the middle of all this chaos, Alan Mulally, the CEO of Ford, does something that just seems crazy. He gets on a plane to Washington, D.C., and he makes this passionate plea for a government bailout. But here's the kicker. He's not asking for money for Ford. Nope. He's asking for a bailout for GM and Chrysler, his biggest, fiercest rivals. So the big question is, why? Okay, so if you look at this through the lens of traditional economics, this move makes zero sense. I mean, for decades, the way we've thought about a company's importance, it's been super simple.
The old school way of thinking, based on classic economic ideas, is that a company's impact is all about its sales. That's it. If you have big sales, you're a big deal to the economy. Small sales, you're a small player. Nice and simple.
So if you followed that logic, Ford should have been throwing a party, right? I mean, your two biggest competitors are about to go under. That means more customers, a bigger piece of the pie for you. Mulally should have been breaking out the champagne, not begging Congress for help. So what was going on? What did he see that everyone else was missing?
And to figure this out, we have to look deeper. We need to go beyond the balance sheets and the sales numbers. We need to stop seeing the economy as just a bunch of separate companies and start seeing it for what it really is, this incredibly complex, hidden web where everything is connected.
So this is how we usually picture it, right? You've got a company like GM, they build cars, they sell them to us. It's a straight line from the factory floor to your garage. But obviously, it's not that simple. GM doesn't just snap its fingers and a car appears. No way. They have to buy thousands upon thousands of parts. We're talking engines, electronics, you name it, from this huge network of other companies. They're suppliers.
And this is the key. This is the hidden connection Alan Mulally understood. Ford, GM's sworn enemy, wasn't really a separate island. They were tied together because they both depended on the exact same companies for critical parts.
And that realization just changes everything. We have to throw out that old silo view, where it's all about size and sales, and instead we have to adopt this network view, where what really matters is how connected you are and where you sit in that giant economic web. Mulally knew what this research now proves. In a network this tangled up, when one big piece goes down, it doesn't just disappear. It starts a chain reaction. It's like tipping over the first domino in a massive, complex line.
Okay, let's walk through this using a model from the paper. So imagine the auto industry is humming along nicely. You've got GM over here and Ford over there, and they both need parts from this one critical supplier to make their cars. Everything's stable, everything's working. But then, bam, a huge economic shock hits. Think 2008. The money dries up, nobody's buying cars, and GM just can't make it. It goes bankrupt and disappears from the picture. Poof, gone. So what happens next? Well, think about that supplier. It just lost a gigantic chunk of its business, literally overnight. Its income just vanishes. It can't pay its bills, and it goes under too. The domino has just hit the next one in line. And here it is. Here's the final blow. Now this hits Ford. Remember, Ford was doing okay financially, but it doesn't matter because its rival, GM, going down just took out a supplier that Ford needs to survive. Without that supplier, Ford can't get the parts to build its cars. So a perfectly healthy company is now facing its own disaster. That, right there, is a cascading failure.
So, this whole idea of cascading failures proves that just looking at sales figures is totally missing the point. We need a smarter way to figure out how important a company really is, a way that actually understands its place in the network.
So the research gives us a couple of new tools. First up is something called supplier centrality. Basically, it's a way to measure how critical a company is to everyone who buys from it and everyone who buys from them all the way down the line.
And then there's the other side of the coin, consumer centrality.
This looks at it from the opposite direction. It measures how important a company is to all the suppliers it buys from. If you have high consumer centrality, it means you're the big customer at the end of a really important supply chain.
Now, when you combine those two ideas, you get to the real powerhouse concept here: exit centrality. This is the big one. It's a new way to measure the total chaos that would be unleashed on the economy if a single company just disappeared. It's not just about that company. It's about the entire shockwave it sends out.
So you can see the difference, right? The old way, using sales, just tells you how big a company is. But this new metric, exit centrality, tells you how essential it is. It's the difference between knowing the size of a building and knowing if it's a critical power station for the entire city.
Okay, so now that we have this new tool, this idea of exit centrality, let's go all the way back to the beginning. Let's go back to Alan Mulally in 2008, because suddenly his totally bizarre request starts to look, well, brilliant.
This wasn't about being a nice guy. This was about survival. He was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. He knew that GM and Chrysler had massive exit centrality. He knew that if they went down, it wouldn't just be their problem. It would start a fire that would burn down their shared suppliers and take Ford down with them. Saving his rivals was the only way to save himself.
And think about what this means beyond just cars. It shifts the whole conversation from too big to fail to too connected to fail. It gives people in charge, policymakers, a much smarter way to handle crises. And it tells us something really mind-blowing. Some small, obscure company you've never even heard of could be more important to the whole economy than a giant corporation, just because it's that one critical link holding everything together.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought, doesn't it? What's the most important company that you've never heard of? Because maybe, just maybe, the companies that are truly holding our economy together aren't the ones with the giant skyscrapers and flashy ads. Maybe they're the quiet ones, the hidden connectors in the web that, if they were to disappear tomorrow, would make the whole thing fall apart.